made the decision to not be sad. This is not a sad time.
No.
Was there a bit of a lost opportunity? Yes. But you know what?
Yeah.
It's a fortunate thing we didn't go live right after the series. We've had a few days for perspective. We had a holiday. We spent some time with our families, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
We broke bread together.
Chocolate.
Ate chocolate. And now we've put everything in perspective, man. What a split that was.
What a split.
What a
Some memories from that one.
Yeah, definitely. And in that spirit, we hope to discuss tonight, not in the bleak, pessimistic way that we tend to when we're very sad about losses, but instead in a happy time way.
It's as easy as that. You just decide to be happy instead of being sad. Who knew? It's the secret to fandomship. Cole.
The fandomship. Nice word.
We've cracked the code. Thank you.
Well, look, I think, yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. Do that thing for us, please. Go ahead.
This is 100 Talk. This is a talk show. It's a talk show.
A talk show. Is this a talk show?
We have guests sometimes. It's a talk show. We're a talk show. This is a podcast where we talk about 100 Thieves League of Legends, among some other things sometimes, but primarily 100 Thieves League of Legends. And right now, 100 Thieves League of Legends, the end of the spring split 2020 is half in the books, Cole. And I think that we all wish it was actually June, so this cursed year would be half done. However, it's only April, and we got some time to reflect, think about this, think of any kind of way that we can get Bjergsen to stop playing against our team.
No,
please.
No, they give him ownership. Nope.
Can we just? Maybe we could try a different league. It's worth it. It's worth considering. But yeah, that's what we are. I'm Jordan. That's Cole.
So we're going to run the series in a generalized sense where we're talking about the players more than anything else. Just what we saw, some of the key things from the series, but not going into depth with it. You guys saw what happened and you knew how close it was, and it was back and forth, and there were positives and negatives. We're going to like talk about some of the general takeaways more than actually dive into each game. Then we'll talk about where everybody kind of stands and what we hope to see in the offseason versus what we think we're going to see. Usually don't reach out on the show, but Dylan says no depth on this show, only surface takes. That's right. Tonight, that is the case.
I can make.
Actually, this is on the back of the most in-depth analysis ever on Ryoma last time. So we still have
a break.
Yeah,
coming up from that one. That one was a real deep dive.
Right. So gather around, 100T fans. Let's sit around the fire and talk about what just happened. Have a little bit of a counseling sesh.
And it's hard at this point in the split, Cole, it being over, to not kind of take this approach of what do we take into going forward, right? Like, I feel like the kind of the deeper takes are best reserved for week to week. Like, what do we need to see differently?
Yeah,
we have a period of inactivity now where it's macro stuff that we have to think about, not like draft strategies and minor pick ideas or kind of the player styles. Like, that's all important too. But we're kind of into the big picture mode. So I think these 5 games, we got 5, are a good jumping off point to start talking about exactly that.
Yeah, and the first and unfortunately only 5-game series that goes the distance for us. So when we played Cloud9, it was a quick 3-0. Don't feel like we got any sort of idea on how this team would play in general, except for the fact that we kind of did some comp things that we're very used to, maybe. I don't know. We actually played a full series with ups and downs for all the players, with strategy changes, that sort of thing. But the first 2 games, interestingly enough, were basically the same thing with drastically different results.
Yep. Same game, different outcomes. Very different. Can I give you a quick charitable take? One of my favorite kinds of takes.
Nice. Jordan, the king of charitable takes.
I actually forgot that the Cloud9 series was a best of 5. In my head, which doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. I thought it was a best of 3 because we played. It was so fast. It was a best of, but that's not the point I was making. What if we ran all that weird stuff against Cloud9 because we knew we didn't really have a shot at beating them? As I think at this point you can argue no one really does.
Yeah.
EG did really well to take a game in a best of 5. What if we did that so that we didn't prepare TSM with anything actually meaningful? Like, looking back at the Cloud9 series, what was that? I think that might actually be a legitimate strategic choice to make, of like, let's just throw some stuff out there because who cares, really? This is a free series. Yeah.
Because let's find something out.
And then Cloud9 continues to stomp people, and nobody's going to look at your performance against them and be like, wow, guys, that was, they really beat you. It's like, yeah. And everyone.
Well, I think you throw things out there, trying them, hopefully with the idea that they work. And I think what we found out is that they didn't work for us. Yeah. And not that they would have a chance of working against Cloud9, but they didn't even look viable. You know, which is
my charitable take. This is my charitable take that I get at least one per show.
Yeah. So nothing viable out of that series, which leads us to game 1 in TSM, where we ran basically the same thing we always do. All right. You know, the 100 Thieves comp, you know, it's going to be Misfortune Nautilus bot lane. You know, we're going to have some sort of control mage in mid. You know, it's going to be Jarvan or Sejuani or Trundle in the jungle. And then, you know, Ssumday's either going to be on Ornn or Aatrox. Which one? I don't know. Ornn or Aatrox.
Or maybe Set.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes Set. That's when we really get spicy.
Yeah, this is like your 85% lineup for us.
Yeah, right.
Feels pretty reliable.
Yeah. The thing in this game, so going into TSM, what you always know is going to happen, 200 Thieves against TSM. They will send many players to a single turret many times. If there is a strategy that you can point to against them or against us by them,
yeah,
that would be it. Count the number of 3 and 4 man turret dives that happen in this game. There are many. Sometimes it takes 5 of them to take down one fake god. 5 of them and basically all their ultimates. Sometimes it only takes 3. Sometimes it takes 4. Whatever it takes, they are prepared to do it. And that's what we saw a lot of in this game. Unfortunately, this strategy by them is not one that I think most teams would do, but they opt into it boldly, which is we're going to throw a lot of stuff at top lane where your best player is. And man, after the C9, we talked about that kind of being a tilt week for Ssumday, which we had never seen this guy tilt before. And he was clearly losing it against Licorice in that series.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure tilt is the right way to describe this, but my boy was not playing too good.
Yeah, it's wild. Like maybe that's something that TSM learned from the Cloud9 series, right? You can't. It's the only thing I can think of, Cole, is the scene in 300 where he throws the spear and doesn't kill him, but he bleeds, and it's like, well, so you're telling us that any of us could potentially try this out, and TSM tried it, and it was so weird to see Ssumday. And then I guess you kind of look back on all these other incredible moments of his, right, where it's either 1v2 or 1v3, and he pulls off some kind of miraculous play to leave with something. Those are all very close plays.
Yeah.
And I guess what we're learning is you can't expect to have that happen every time.
Right.
And if you just keep rolling those dice, maybe it's this, you roll the dice on the first time and you get lucky, you have found yourself a potential win condition for that game.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, I mean, when we're talking about top laners in the LCS, we're talking about Licorice, Ssumday, and Broken Blade, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the guys in the top tier for LCS. And I mean, we just happen to play the 2 teams that can match us. And as we found out, in both series, exceed us. in that lane. And I mean, they were willing to ensure Broken Blade had the support he needed to take Ssumday down. And I think given Ssumday's current mental state, which is speculation on our end, but I mean, like, dude has been struggling for the past little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they knew that they could get in his head and get an advantage. And we saw Broken Blade like BMing sometimes during this match. And I mean, I think they consciously worked that angle. And guess what? It was successful for them. And it was successful in a very palpable way. It wasn't like, oh, you know what? Actually, Broken Blade's keeping up with Ssumday. Wow, he's kind of neutral.
Right.
No, it was pretty bad. That's
always been our kind of worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Like every time we talk about Ssumday, it's, he's going to at least go even.
Yeah.
And we have been able to say that and not look foolish or like we're rose tinted glasses for an entire split.
Mm-hmm.
This is really the first time back-to-back series that has not been the outcome. And it's not only when they do everything to make sure he is tripped up.
Oh, like, yeah.
He just got outplayed sometimes, straight up. He was overconfident. He didn't respect his opponent, and he paid the price. It was wild, Cole.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was most surprised about. And honestly, like, the way TSM plays against us, they usually either smash us or it's a close game. You know what I mean? Like, it's a close game and they lose. I mean, they usually win big. Occasionally you get the game 5 scenario where it's a close fought game, but usually it's the snowball, right? And they really started this game off on the right foot and carried us all the way through. I mean, here's a question for you, Jordan. Who on our team had a good game in game 1?
I mean, that's a question that I think you could ask for every game we lost in the series.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
game 1, game 4, and game 5 is
game 5 is a little different, but
game 1 and 4, the answer is probably no one. It's no one.
Cody Sun, like, he played fine, but it's you don't get him in a position where he can be a difference maker when you're so far behind, and by the time you hit the late game, it's already basically over. He can't usually do much in that situation. So
yeah, I mean, you're playing a position where your job is to finish the game, clean it up,
right?
Become the carry. And if your team is so far behind that by the time you're ready to become the carry, you've already lost, that's not on you. That's not on you.
Now, now that I'm thinking about it, I do want to go back and revisit this thing about the 3 and 4 man dives, because I think it's indicative of a problem with this team. Because I have a hard time, with our team. I have a hard time thinking of us being super proactive on the map. And we basically were out macroed in a big way. Now, I don't think many high level teams commit to map moves on the same level that TSM did in this game, where they're sending so much into a specific spot. But it's almost like TSM knows that we don't have the ability to respond to those moves. And they know that if they have the agency and they have the tempo, we're on our back heels the whole time. And it's super hard for us to get into a game when that's happening, because you feel like you're just chasing their roaming death squad around the map. And credit to them for picking a style and like sticking to it in a big way, because I think that's basically the explanation. So given that, Jordan, do you have concerns about our team in the summer picture for macro plays, for playing the map? Have we seen it played well by us?
We're better than we have been. Is the place you have to start. We made really objectively bad macro plays a lot last year. We have not seen a ton of that. Now, when we had Jungle Juice on the show a while back, he said something to us. He said, it's League of Legends. A lot of people don't appreciate this. This is him talking, not me. League of Legends is a turn-based game.
Right.
You remember he said that?
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought of it that way. I was like, oh, snap. That's really profound.
That's why he's Jungle Juice.
That's why he's got a job in League of Legends.
Yeah.
If TSM gets to spend all of their turns killing your bot lane and collecting assist gold on it, and you don't do anything with the turn that generates for you, yeah, that's an easy way to beat a team. And I think for me, that's the concern, is that if we are on our back foot, right? If Ssumday is behind, if he's been killed twice in lane, if Ryoma is not laning strongly and he has a hard time punishing his enemy laner missing, that's the easy play. That's the one you take, and that's the one you kind of force us into. Most teams don't do that. This like TSM special of show up with everybody, just bring everybody, because you have to invest so much to make that happen. You have to either burn a TP or you have to, back and then walk to a different lane. Like that's an incredible amount of time. And a good team is going to get something. They're going to get a Rift, or they're going to get a Drake, or they're going to get significant plates. They're going to make you pay, to the point where whatever you're gaining from that 5-person showing up in one spot on the map is either completely offset or it actually costs you more than you gain. So I think, to answer your question, these kinds of plays only happen when the enemy team is not concerned, when they've done the math in their head and they've figured out that it's actually a more economical decision to just send everybody and guarantee this thing. Let's play this on easy mode, right? Like, how do you mess up a 5-man dive? Everybody casts one spell and then just walk out. And we'll get back to business, right? So if you can't punish a team, that's the kind of thing that they can do to you. TSM's good at it, right? They have really good pieces that can execute it well. It's not the hardest thing to execute, but Bjergsen is, amazing at that. So we saw that here. It hurt us.
Now, so the game got out of control. It ended up being a landslide victory for TSM. Here's the positive. The positive is that usually teams who are outgunned, outmanned, outmatched, if they take a big blow like that from the jump, they are out. And we have pointed to time and time again with this team, there are moments, and this isn't all the time, but there are moments of surprising grit that the team has. And after the draft in game 1, I was in our Discord talking to everybody about it, like we were kind of live tweeting it as well. Everyone felt like we won that draft, and it's like, oh man, we had the draft advantage and we still found a way to get blown out by this game, right? Mm-hmm. Now, imagine in that position, instead of dwelling on how terribly it went when you got the draft that you wanted, turning around and saying, no, relax. That is the draft we wanted. We just messed up. We just forgot. They're going to send 4 people to Ssumday. They're going to send 4 people to bot lane. They're going to send 3 to Ryoma. It's just going to happen. We forgot. We weren't prepared. Let's try that again. And ran back the exact same draft, which is now affectionately known as the salty runback.
So salty.
Where that was Zix and co. staking their claim on being the better team in that composition. They said, no. Y'all got lucky. Let's do this again, and we'll see what happens. And what happened was we witnessed the coming of one Australian mid laner, Ryoma.
Yeah.
Ryoma came and destroyed everyone. This was unexpected. Yeah. Like you and I have been some of the foremost defenders of Ryoma. We've advocated to give him time. While he's not a finished product and he's not where he needs to be right now, give him some time and he'll find a way to pop off. I didn't see this coming.
No.
I don't know about you.
Not in this series. He's had big games. He's had games where he carries. Not in this way.
I will say that this I think was his most powerful carry game. He had the one Zoe game against GG maybe, or GG or FlyQuest. He had like a really nice pop-off game on Zoe that was great.
Yeah.
This exceeded that standard significantly.
Yeah, man. And as I was watching this, I couldn't help but think back to our conversation from the previous series against Cloud9. And what it kind of felt like this game, it kind of felt like he was showing up and he was just reaping the harvest, right? Like our team was helping him out in such beautiful ways. Like the CC chains, you know, he would drop the orb and then the shockwave would just delete people, multiple people. It would get 3 people, you know. It's like it was like the sweet spot, man. And for me, what it kind of told me was, when we can set this kid up, this is what he can do. This is how he can deliver. And he had a great game and he carried and he looked really, really good. I think I'm pretty convinced it was as much about the team around him. You know, this was not the Bjergsen heroic one person.
Sure.
I refuse to let my team lose this game as well. This was just like the team, a well-oiled machine, setting it up, and he was knocking it down to the tune of 12 kills, I think is what he ended with.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12, 2, and 4.
2 and 4 was the final line. And I mean, he had a triple kill. I think he had a couple double kills. Like, they were coming in bunches for him. And it was just really well done. And that was exciting to see, especially because, honestly, if you look at it objectively, Ssumday had another bad game. He really had another bad game. He was pretty ineffective for a lot of this thing. In fact, I would say he had a worse game than Stunt did in this, if I may be so bold. Another person who had an amazing game was Medios, with the very rare stat line of 0-0-14.
Yep, that's a big stat.
That is a lot of assists. Doing his thing, man, like setting up kills with the Jarvan and donating them exactly where they needed to go. So Medios looked great. Cody Sun was not as flashy, perhaps, as he gets, you know, in games where we tend to dominate, but rock solid on the misfortune. And it's interesting because Ryoma had such a strong game, and Bjergsen still was playing pretty well. Like, Bjergsen's Corki was still probably the scariest thing they had going for him. And so usually it's like one neutralizes the other, you know?
Right. Either you do great or he does great.
Right.
And there's a good chance that he's going to do great 3 times in a 5-game series.
Yeah. But so in this case, you know, he's playing well. So it's not like Ryoma isn't facing a threat while he's doing this.
All right. That's a good point. It's not like Bjergsen just kind of fell asleep and handed it to him.
Yeah. So interesting game. But it just looked completely different. It was 2 of the exact same drafts with 2 completely different results.
Can we talk really briefly about, I don't want to do an in-depth one, but champ pools? So
sure.
I feel like Ryoma's had, so Dylan's pointed out, rightfully so, he had one other Orianna game where he cast the ult on cooldown to great effectiveness.
Basically, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know
it's
that
like
he could
week
have
8, I think. Week 7 or week 8,
game. Yeah. So Orianna is a scary champ for him, I'm going to say. Yep. Like, I wouldn't feel great if he got that champ and I was playing against him. Zoe, I would say, is a strong champ for him. Like, he's had great Zoe games.
It's pretty good, though. Again, I have to formally retract my he plays well against Zoe statements. That's because fine. Those have been counteracted, at least against great Zoes, as we saw in both C9 and TSM.
That's a champ that if he got, I'd feel like, okay, we got a good pick for him. Right?
Sure, yeah.
LeBlanc, we've seen him have great LeBlanc games.
Mm-hmm.
Syndra, I think, is maybe the one that he's played the most and I could just be misremembering this at this point, but like, I can't think of as many Syndra games where he's really popped off.
Yeah, he's all right.
Sure.
I think he's competent enough on it, but
right. Like, it's not a liability, but it's not arriving like this one did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 4 like very meta picks that we feel good about him on. Is that
he has an okay Victor too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I think Loco did this thing of like, oh, his positioning on Victor's so bad. That's Loco just like playing into everybody's preconceived notions of Ryoma. he honestly, he has a decent enough Victor, you know, and in one game it was even a problem, like a problematic Victor for them. So yeah, I mean,
So
he's
5
so he's
champs
got
that
these
you're,
control mages down. Yeah.
is 5 champs that you're dangerous on? Is that like not enough?
Oh
Or when
no.
people say
Well,
champ pool, are they talking about like assassins and these other like different looks?
I think that's part of it is he's playing a certain type of champion almost all the
Right.
time, right? We don't see.
I mean,
we don't see the
that's what's very
Yasuo.
meta.
We don't see the Aurelia.
Yeah.
You know, or and we haven't seen him on Corki, have we? I don't think he's played Corki.
Maybe not.
You know, there are other viable picks out there that play different styles that he's not showing. And one of the comments in chat, again, guys who are new to this, we don't typically read much of chat during this because it's our straight podcast. But Darkhoot did say, I feel like Ryoma champ pool has been artificially suppressed for whatever reason. And I kind of get that vibe too, because he's playing different champs than he played when he was in Osh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably a function of both the team not feeling comfortable with him on certain champs yet in the context of how we play, and also what the meta is. So like, you know, right now, for instance, no one's going to get to play a Kali, you know, so we don't know what that looks
exactly.
like. Right? So there,
like,
and there are other champs like that. Yeah.
That has always been in the meta basically up until this split.
Right. So, but there are picks that I think he could probably play, but for whatever reason, we're not seeing just yet. So
yeah,
that is another interesting thing.
And that, I think we've had conversations like this one about Ssumday.
Yeah.
So think back to the why doesn't Ssumday play carries conversation. Like, why doesn't Ssumday play Lucian every game? The team has made the decision that there are some comps that work well with that and some that don't. And if it were as easy as just playing that champ every time, we would. So there are picks that a player can play, Lucian being the example I'm using here, that the team, not the player, or maybe the player in combination with the team, has decided is not a viable every game pick.
Yeah.
Right. The list of control mages we just went through are clearly not on that list because the team feels good about those being played for reasons that we've seen. So it's one of those where I don't think you should look at it and say, well, he can't play them. We don't know that. And we've seen him play them in competitive leagues in the past. Osh not being the same as the LCS, of course, but it's not like he's never played Yasuo, you know?
Yeah.
We know
he definitely played Yasuo in OPL. So
yeah. So
yeah, I mean,
it's an interesting.
It'll probably come with time too. I bet you in the summer we'll see a much greater experimentation with his champ pool, unless something is really like not going right, you know, in preparation. So I don't know. Are you okay if we talk about Stunt really quick?
Sure.
So Stunt has been
like in the context of the game.
Yeah, in the context of the game.
Yeah.
Stunt, you know, has been the person that we've ragged on the most. And I still firmly believe the change that we need to make is in the support role. I will say that I think his aggregate, you know, play making, his aggregate like level, his form during playoffs has been higher than what we saw during most of the regular season. And in this game, it was so frustrating because there was a mixed bag of sometimes like really like bad engages or just whiffing on some mechanical stuff. And then like great flash hooks that set up, you know, when they'd already disengaged and we thought like the fight was over, he would have this like awesome flash hook to pull Kabe in or whoever. You know, it's just like he showed both sides of the coin a whole lot in this game. Yeah. And I think it's a product of that I go mentality. It's like, no, we go fight no matter what. I'm gonna just find a play and you guys need to back it up. And man, we just can't sustain that. We just can't sustain that. It's just unfortunate. Like the overall mixture, the overall formula with him doesn't hit the right balance for the team and probably not for the LCS, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm there. I think this is an unsophisticated way to look at this, but
welcome to Hunter Talk.
Welcome to Hunter Talk. What are the number of support bans we've seen come through the split? This would be I'd be interested to see this. Look at each player on our team the number of bans, the total number of bans they've drawn, and the total, like there's some other component here, which is how many different champions do they play, right? Like champ variability and number of bans. And it's got to be some kind of an anomaly with Stunt. He played one champion this entire series, and it was never banned. They were not afraid of it. And I think based on what you just said is the exact explanation for that. Even on the comfort champ that he has, Nautilus, he plays it all the time. He's still not 100%. It's not clean. There are moments where he has these great engages, these great plays. We've given him kudos for those when they show up. Some of those plays have led to us, stealing huge objectives and securing games. They're not nothing plays. But the fact that our opponents are not afraid of that, I think speaks more than anything that we can say about it, or any analyst, I think, for that matter. It says so much to me that teams are fine giving that champ to him. It's okay if he has Nautilus. It would be so easy to target him, if they were worried, but they're not, which I think is just it gives me concern.
That's the thing. Like he and Cody Sun played the same champs for all 5 games of this series. All right. Even in the wake of like a Cody Sun pop off, TSM was like, no, it's good. Trust me, it's good. Let him go. Just let him go. And they were
did the
right.
Homework, guys. We're good.
They were right. And I'm doing this all night. But another thing I wanted to read from chat, Fresh Baked Good says, I remember there were at least 2 hooks in river fights where we were like, thank goodness that hook didn't land. Yes. I thought that. I may have audibly said that out loud on a couple of those, where it's just like, oh my gosh. And they just know that what he is a mistake waiting to happen. And a mistake waiting to happen is a mistake that you can capitalize on. So
yeah, hook champs are great, Cole.
And
your Q is a go button, and if you can land a skill shot and then your problems begin, that's a challenge. That is a challenge, and right?
It makes me feel so bad for Cody, right? Because I think we've seen enough of Cody to know that this dude, when he has the right support, he's very good.
Yeah,
right. He's very good. He was third team All Pro this split, despite who his support is like, and he just has to sit there and know that is what they're playing, no matter what, for this series.
And he kind of has to sit there and know, like, think about his playoff experience this split versus his last split with Vulcan. Right? How different does that feel? I mean, he basically hauled his team through 2 worlds, Cole. 2 worlds. That is a huge difference, man. Like, they were the engine behind that team. There's some other good stuff, obviously, but you take Cody Sun, you take Vulcan out of that team. A lot of other things change, of course, but they don't even make playoffs, man. That was such a dangerous pair on the Dignitas lineup. So we're going to get to it. I still believe in Cody.
Yeah. Yep. Same here. Well, that was a lot of negativity for a huge W that we took during that game. Let's move to game 3. So the first thing of note that happened in game 3 was that Ssumday was solo killed by Broken Blade so bad that Observer didn't even have time to catch up to it. And yes, as they pointed out, as the casters pointed out, Set is supposed to lose to Pantheon early. However, I am not used to seeing Ssumday get solo killed so quickly that you can't even watch it, and so early that the lane's basically over. Right. What a weird thing that we kept seeing, man. I can't explain what happened. And you cannot fault this guy after the split he's had. Like, look, he's been the person carrying us in the vast majority of these games, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I just wonder what happened, man. Was it really the all pro team thing? Did that get to him enough? Like, I don't know what it is, but something has been thrown off with Ssumday's mental, and it was on display right from the jump during this game.
I almost feel like there's no other explanation for it. Like, how else do you explain this other than his head wasn't in the right space? That play looked like me laning against a champ that I'm not sure how he works. like, oh, I'm stunned. What? Like empowered. What's he empowering? It was not a good look, man. And another negative note to a dub, but it is that worrying trend. I said at the end of our last game discussion, I still believe in Cody. I still believe in Ssumday, of course, but
yeah,
he has shown himself to be fallible.
Yeah, especially recently, man. There's no other explanation. And you mentioned it earlier, the Lucian. Like, what if they brought out the Lucian pick for this series? See Ssumday go Lucian into Broken Blade. That would have been chef's kiss, right?
Yeah.
But no, what we got is him looking very mortal in lane. That's a good way of saying it. So here's the thing, though. We won this game. This was another dub for 100 Thieves. And Cody Sun being the primary carry in this instance, dude went off. He had, I think he had something like 10 kills. And looked like 9. So confident in his fighting. He had a couple of monster fights. He had a 2-man Baron contest with Ryoma where they shoved like all 5 of TSM off the Baron, basically. It might have been 4. I need to actually go watch for details, but it was 4 or 5 of them, and they shoved him off with just the 2 of them. And I think they stalled long enough for the team to show up. And I think TSM still got the Baron, but they lost like 3 people in that fight. That started out in just a 2v4 or 2v5.
It was a very costly Baron.
Yeah. It did not end up being what they needed it to be. So that was awesome. Just seeing him look so confident in this game. And maybe it had to do with the fact that Stunt didn't seem to find himself in trouble during this game.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see him getting caught out. We didn't see him face planting the hooks. I mean, it just looked so much more cohesive for the bot lane. Stunt only died once, in fact. So
it's like one of his better stat lines.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
Seriously.
And again, so this was a Ryoma Victor game, and I felt like his peel was really good in this. You've got like the death ray, you've got the whatever the ult's called that you throw out, and you can just move it around to control
Chaos Storm.
Yeah, Chaos Storm. It's like, hey, where would you like to go today? Here are your options. That's what you can do with Victor, and Ryoma was doing the thing. And I think Ryoma actually had a pretty unheralded game in this one.
2-12. It's supportive Victor.
Yeah, it didn't look flashy by any means, but I thought it was another game where he looked good into Bjergsen. And Bjergsen on Azir. Remember what Bjergsen's Azir did to us earlier on in the split? That was a pentakill that came out of Bjergsen Azir. So this is this champion where he's had our number historically. So yeah, man, I felt another like, wow, Ryoma might truly be coming into his own here.
Yeah, man, we're seeing enough of these games, and we're saying that exact same thing enough times, and you're finally starting to hear it. Like one of the guys on the dive gave honors to him, basically like end of split honors for just demonstrating that he's worth it. Proving that he is not worthless talent. Like, so I can feel good about that, right? And I'm like, we lost the series, but these kinds of games from Ryoma, a 2-2-12 game on a Victor, right? Where his job wasn't to win that game. It wasn't to carry us to victory. It was to make sure that Cody Sun could do what he needed to do, and he did. And that's super important. So another kind of tally in the positive column.
Yeah. I do think that there was some throwing by Dardoch happening in this game. I don't know what point it is, and this is just a feeling. So chat, you might need to like correct me on this, but like it felt like there's a point in the game later where Dardoch starts to get impatient and he will dive in and not be able to get back out. you know?
Mhm.
And I felt like we saw that several times during this series, and this was one of those games where really donating us extra advantage sometimes. So it's nice to be cut a break every once in a while.
Right. I'm gonna help you out a little bit here, just to take my ult off right into the middle of this group and see what happens.
Yeah.
And it turns out that he dies every time. Yeah, he's got kind of like blabber syndrome, but he's not blabber. That's how I describe it. Yeah, but
and it looks like Chad is speculating that some of that is due to online play. I don't know how much you guys can really read into this. Like, I'm not saying it has zero effect, but like, I mean, it's not night and day changed how you play. You know, it's just really not. So I don't know.
I mean,
I don't personally
someday Cole will have
subscribe
to explain it.
I don't personally subscribe to that theory. And again, I think there are players for which it makes a small difference, and then I think there are players where it doesn't make a difference. You know, it just depends. But I don't think anyone's like, wow, I'm not an LCS studio. I can't feed off of the crowd energy, which is not. I mean, other than a select couple of personalities in the LCS, right. I don't think these are like extroverted people. You know, so
nor is the
know.
crowd that big at many of these games that you're feeding off much.
Well, in playoffs you can, you know.
In playoffs, it's different.
Finals, you know, is good, but
it's one of those things that we'll never be able to prove either way. So at best, it feels like just like a rationalization. I mean, I guess if Dardoch suddenly starts playing a lot better once we all get back to the stage, then you'd say, well, he played badly online.
So Dardoch said not playing on stage made it hard for him to get into the game day mood. All right, I would be coming up with an excuse too if I was him. You know? So that's all I'll say there. And yes, psychology routine is part of athlete success. I said that exact thing the last time we had this conversation. So clearly we understand that. But I'm just saying there's no like night and day difference here.
Like, how do you explain Bjergsen? He's always good.
We're just not seeing like 9-day difference. So there, as with most things, as with most discussion topics, you know, and this is good because this is getting us back to the root of who we are and what we do here. As with everything, there's always a little bit of truth to it, but you can't overblow it. All right. That's what it is. We've like everybody who has a podcast or a show or they're analysts or whatever, or they're tweeting or they're making Reddit posts, they have to take something and inject so much into it and blow it up and make it a thing. All right. You take a kernel of truth and you pop the kernel, right? It's not always that drastic. That's what I'm saying. So sure, we'll allow for some difference, but I'm just saying you can't just be, oh yeah, once they play, you know, in person or in the studio, they'll be great. It just doesn't work that way.
I mean, and also, hasn't this always kind of been Dardoch's MO? Like, he is a very aggressive jungler, and you either really like to have those junglers or you don't, because they're either winning your team fights or they're not. Like, the best ones win them a lot more often than they lose them, like Blabber. So, I mean, I don't think it'd be a controversial take to say that Blabber is better than Dardoch. And for me, what that means is sometimes Dardoch gives away more than you want him to, right? If you want to control jungler, like somebody who just sets plays up and he shows up for a safe gank every now and again, like that's a different player.
Call Meteos.
You know, he's very good at that. Like, look at game 2, 0-0 and 14. How many Chad kills did he get in that game? 0. How good was he though? He's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's just a different profile, and you're going to have your slumps. And he slumped. Dardoch slumped. I say he slumped. He won the series. He had a bad game, right? So I think that's a lot of what this comes down to is, you know, sometimes a player's true tendencies arise at the most inopportune time. And interesting in this series is Ssumday we saw that happen when it's nothing we've seen from him before, right?
Yeah.
It would be like if Meteos started playing like Blabber in the middle of a series and we're like, what's going on here? And it didn't work. We'd be like, yo, stop, bro, stop it.
Yeah.
Cut that out. So these are the things that are interesting, especially when you get a best of 5, because you can have multiple chances to reset and get different looks at the same player.
Yep. All right. Well, moving on, just in the interest of time. So on the back of a nice Cody Sun performance and a nice stunt performance and a pretty solid Ryoma performance, we did end up getting the dub for game 3. So we were up 2-1. And at that point, I really thought, I was like, wow, we're going to take this series because we got 2 shots at it and TSM's just too coin flippy. You know, like we'll be able to win one of these games. So went into game 4 feeling super optimistic. And then they switched some things up. And the 2 biggest choices they made, or actually you could say 3 choices. 1, after Stunt had a great game on Nautilus, they let him run it back. So which we already hit on. But also the Callista top lane pick. Don't like that. The Zoe mid lane pick. Don't like that. Those 2 picks broke the game. And we just ragged on Dardoch for a while. But credit to Dardoch, who said, I'm playing Rek'Sai, kill early, and did so. So the Callista lane, I think like something about seeing Ssumday on his heels, I think puts the whole team in panic. And playing Aatrox into Callista is one of those panic-inducing matchups.
Yeah. No, like that matchup.
Yeah. So what do you do when he's flying around the lane? He's up 40, 50 CS within like 10 minutes, you know? And he's also still getting that gank support from Rek'Sai.
Yeah. Who's feasting.
They're still doing the 3 and 4 man turret dives, you know? Man, that sucked. That really sucked.
Bogus game.
I regretted playing that game and watching that game. Now, but I will say this. If that was me, I would have fed about 8 kills during the lane phase. All right. I need to check the tape. All right. But I'm pretty sure Ssumday did not give over a kill in the lane phase. He said, instead of tilting or getting too upset or being like, oh, it's a broken blade, I must kill broken blade, which is how I feel all the time. He played safe. He sat under turret. You know, he absorbed the pressure as well as he could. I don't think he gave over a kill during the lane phase. So that is nice. So in the face of a power pick, Ssumday didn't bleed too badly. The problem was we were bleeding everywhere else.
Yep.
And really felt it. And I don't think this shows up on the final scoreboard in terms of CS, but it felt like all lanes were tragically behind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we got 1 kill that game.
Was that the 1 kill game? That was the 1 kill game, wasn't it?
We got 1 kill. We got a Drake.
1 kill. We killed one of them. We killed a dragon, and we went home and had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
It was an ugly game. I didn't honestly even pay that close attention because it was just a very bad game.
It was. I don't think. Like I said, somebody didn't bleed. Cool. I don't think anyone had a good game though. Ryoma didn't look good. Cody Sun had an inting support. Meteos didn't. Yeah, Meteos again. He wasn't that bad, but he wasn't very good. And Dardoch just owned him for the first part of the game. Like Dardoch was really just problematic. So
yeah, I mean, it's they took a like Callista Rek'Sai. That's an early game comp, and they won early. And you're Sejuani. Like, well, okay, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know, you have basically no options. I'm sure by the time he's level 6, he's already so far behind that you cast an ult on one person. It's like, oh, great. Okay. So
Bjergsen also, I don't think this translated as well to the scoreboard, but Bjergsen was terrorizing on Zoe. So we've talked about this before. You have to be laning the harass. You have to be laning the poke. Mm-hmm. Well, he knows how to do that. And yeah, it was so annoying. So annoying every time you want to go set something up and suddenly half your health bar has gone to a paddle star, you know?
Yep.
Or someone lands a trouble bubble. So now the entire team has to like, you know, retreat as somebody tries to buffer the sleep.
Right. Or body block. Who's going to take this one?
And let's not forget Niski played Zoe 3 times in a row into us before this series, right before this series, the last thing that happened to 100 Thieves was Niski's Zoe. And we just forgot about that or whatever and just let it happen in game 4 and in game 5.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you forget about it, that's one thing, but you can't forget about it 2 games in a row back to back because you have your most recent memory is of that champion being played. How can you forget that?
Yeah, and gosh,
forget it.
I don't know what it is. So if perhaps there's one of the parallel universes in the where they are thinking like me in that like he's actually yeah, this is probably my terrible take. He actually isn't that bad into Zoe, and he just had to play Niski. Like Niski is Niski. So maybe it'll be a regression to the mean and he can just play well against his Zoe. But it didn't happen. It didn't at all. And we should have learned that lesson in time for game 5, which we didn't. And honestly, I don't really have anything else to say about game 4.
No,
so we can just
next.
that game snowballed out of control. We bled badly, and unfortunately all of our structures.
We start where we left off since we saw the same pick come out from Bjergsen, Zoe again. None of us play. I mean, this is not really a champ that you can play well against, in my opinion. You either don't lose that badly, but like a lot of the interactions with Zoe are the kind of interactions that you just have literally no control over. Like, let's look at the pivotal moment from game 5. It's Cody Sun in the river. He's in a bad position. That's on him. He gets tagged, and before he can do anything, he's dead, right? So like, it's hard to say. It's just the champ design is such that it's really hard to say. Like, if you're playing against an Orianna, it's like, shame on you guys for grouping, right? When you're playing your team fights, stagger it, spread out, social distancing. Come on, get it together. This is like, you just gotta, like, what's the advice you give Cody on that one? Like, hey man, if he's alive, watch out, try to be more careful. So I don't know. I always hesitate to say that somebody's not good against Zoe, like, and I don't put this at the feet of Ryoma. Like, it's possible he's not good against Zoe. I'm not trying to address that argument. It's just like, Bjergsen is good on Zoe. We should have taken Zoe away from him. I would have, in hindsight, I would have liked to see Ryoma on the champ, or ban that do that. Although you got to play a Syndra then, I guess. So I don't know, man. It's a tough one. And he just took that game over, and he did the Bjergsen thing. He won the whole game by himself, basically. It hurts. How many times has he done this to us, Cole? Just winning the whole game.
Every
whole dang
time.
game.
Every
on
time.
His own.
No, but I slightly disagree with I'm not putting any of this at Ryoma's feet.
I didn't say any. I didn't say any.
All right.
I mean, he played against him in lane, right? Like, if he could crush Zoe, you wouldn't want to play Zoe against him. He was not involved in the play that prevented us from getting the soul.
Okay, I am much more accepting of that because I do, while we have been defending Ryoma so much, I do want to make sure that we're not blindly doing so and excusing him from responsibility, because at the end of the day, you are an LCS mid laner and you play against LCS mid laners. All right. That's the gig. And so
part of your job is to stop the other mid laner.
Right. So you can't say this is zero responsibility thing, which you didn't, but but the other story of this game, well, first of all, Ssumday's best game. Yeah. Right. Would you agree?
Yeah. 4-2-7 and a loss.
And
not what you usually say is Ssumday's best game, but it was
played pretty well. I thought Ssumday played pretty well. But this was a game where we were winning the fights and losing the map. It was like TSM was able to successfully drag it out long enough that they could find a way to despite the deficit, like take enough of the map to win. And man, that was disappointing because I don't even think it was particularly close. When it comes to gold lead and kill score,
we had big leads,
but it just seemed like the timing was off. on everything. And it again points to maybe the macro issues. But yeah, it just seemed like we were winning everywhere but what it counts, which feels like a bronze or silver solo queue game, right? You know, when your team is like just killing and refusing to go after objectives, like,
yeah,
I don't think they were refusing to. I think like the way that the timing of everything worked out, they weren't able to take objectives most of the time. So yeah, just, man, let him back in this thing. And it's not like we didn't do anything. Like we pushed down mid lane. I think we even took mid and Hib down, and that's when they had like a huge team fight to get back into this thing. Then the Cody death happened.
Yeah.
It was just rough. And let's not forget, the end result of this was that they won by being 1 or 2 seconds ahead of us. Right?
That's it. It
like,
was, I watched it several times, and it was not even, it was a half second.
Yeah. So 1 or 2, yeah, just 1 or 2 autos.
He hits his R, he autos, game's over.
Yeah. If we just beat him there and save the Nexus before the HP expires, we walk right back down mid lane and win the game.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it was a lot closer than I think
flip.
memory feels like. It truly did feel like a coin flip. But I will say this, if you watch the last fight where we end up like truly losing it, it's Bjergsen. He is landing so much over the wall. I think the fight was right around like chickens on our side.
Yep.
And he's just landing everything over the wall, just wrecking us from a safe place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just,
right.
we were so close. We were so close.
Man, I think that Cody shot too. Like, I want to go back and watch it. I'm pretty sure the way it happened, he must have queued that up so far in advance, right? The way the champ is, her kit works, like, he probably had the paddle star waiting there well before he saw anybody. Like, I'm pretty sure that was just his Bjergsen intuition that got him that kill and saved that game. Unbelievable, man. He's so good.
Well, when you play long enough, you get that veteran experience, something that Ryoma can't have yet. He won't have it unless we give him the opportunity to have it.
He needs more time.
He does have to earn that opportunity, though. So here's the deal. We barely lost that series to TSM.
Yep.
And as is the case with so many things this split, this is like the theme, is that we're so close to changing the narrative, and it doesn't happen. Think about like all the early season Ryoma near solo kills, how that would have affected people's perceptions of him early. Think about, and this goes both directions, right? Like, think about Meteos stealing Elder Dragon against Golden Guardians, I think it was.
Yeah.
And winning that game. And we saw the implications of that at the end of the split
we did.
When everybody was tied, right? There are so many times where we are an inch away from a narrative change in some direction. And I think, oddly enough, I think for 100 Thieves fans who are paying attention, where we landed on the narrative for this split was in a good place. It was a 3rd place regular season finish, 5th place overall finish, when most people projected us to be either fringe playoff or miss playoffs entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Net success, right?
Right.
And I think 100 Thieves fans who are paying close attention believe that. But in the community as a whole, I think if we beat TSM in this match, there's no flame in 100 T's direction when even if we lost to like EG, if we turn around and lose to EG or whatever, or even FlyQuest, I think like we avoid so much heat from the community as large.
Yeah.
But we just managed to finish low enough in playoffs to where people can still be like, how's Ryoma working out? And like, how is Stunt working out for you? And
right.
And what is that management thinking? Like we landed in just the place where there's chemistry between people who are paying attention and people who aren't.
Yep.
And I hate that it's that close. It shouldn't be. I feel like they did enough for this split to be considered a success for the org. I don't think that's going to be the analyst reaction.
It's Cloud9's fault.
It's all Cloud9's fault. Why they have to choose us?
Why they have to choose us?
Why did they have to choose us?
You know what I think, Cole? If we beat TSM, we go up and we lose. Let's say we lose. Imaginary scenario. I think that we still get the heat. We've talked about this a little bit. What is our reputation in the scene? Because of the way we started, because we went to Worlds in our first season, because we got more than people thought we should have. We forced some teams out that people liked. We all the things we've talked at length about. We will always be a team that people love to flame. Whether it's to say, you guys, it's like you didn't even go to playoffs. You got 5th place. Like, woohoo, congratulations. If we finished above that, it would be the same thing. It would be it would be them saying, you guys only got up there because Dardoch inted, or because, TSM's a mess, or, whatever. There'll always be something. And so I like to think about it in terms of, do I feel like this team matched my expectations? And I think in that sense, largely, I mean, this is what I said. I predicted 5th or 6th, 6th, and I said maybe my optimistic take is 5th. So, but not to say like, oh, I got it right. They landed exactly where I thought they might. So in that sense, I have a hard time feeling like what a missed opportunity, what a letdown. And when I think about it in terms of where, the pieces of this team, that it feels about right. I think that if we had a stronger support player, we could have made a very honest push for 3-4, probably 3-4.
I don't know. It's reasonable to even say 2. It's not like EG stomped
That's true.
us.
That's true.
It's not like TSM stomped
so 2,
us.
3, 4.
Yeah.
We're kind of right within reach. And if we would have landed there and we had a bot lane that was functioning at a higher level throughout the split, I would have looked at that and said, feels about right. We're not Cloud9, and I'm not going to pretend, but I feel pretty good about that. So for me, I kind of just feel like, yeah, there are very clear things that we can work on and improve on for next split, and we've talked about those. And there are things that I think if we do, we can actually get a lot better. I think we still have considerable upside. So I'm not mad. I kind of look at this and I feel like this is about what I think we could have hoped for. It turns out we had a chance to play for a lot more, which is always kind of one of those hard things where it's like, it's hard to leave not feeling disappointed because we were so close to the top 4 spots. But there's work to be done. It's a work in progress. This is about development, about getting better. We're a heck of a lot better than we were last season. Yeah,
another nice line from Fresh Baked Goods in chat says, I witness growing pains, not regression. We're coming out of diapers, not going back to them. That's a good point. And I think this gives us an opportunity to take a couple listener questions and takes, because a lot of it focused on this sort of thing. Twitter user, it is what it is, PJA, said, I think throughout the split, all of the players improved except for Ssumday in playoffs, probably his worst performance in playoffs. I do think they need to look for a change in support, however. And I think that's pretty fair. I mean, Ssumday, I think hit mid-season form almost immediately. Like he looked like a monster all through the split and then tapered off in playoffs for whatever reason. I don't think we'll ever find out. Now, as far as we need to look for a change in support, we're getting that question also from some people in chat who are asking, did Stunt at the end of the split do enough to stay? Jordan, I'll let you lead off.
We've talked about this, so we try to be fair in our assessment of how he's playing. There are games where he does better. I think that the overall takeaway from the split for me is still that I think he's, I don't think he has upside, right? Like I think when we look at Ryoma, we say he keeps getting better. He's continuing 12-2 and whatever against TSM, Bjergsen. That's fantastic. So I expect that we'll see more of those kinds of performances from Ryoma. I don't expect that we'll see that kind of development continue from Stunt. Like I think we know what we can expect from him. And for me, what we can expect is for him to not maximize the value of Cody in this roster. I think that's the biggest thing right now. That is something we need to figure out. So I think you look for that. You look for the player you can sit next to Cody and have him be the kind of player who can reliably pop off, as we know he can, and he does. So that's where I sit on that.
And there's the looming question, right, of what do you do to replace him? Which that's tough no matter when you're asking that question. I mean, I think obviously if we had a better option in the off season, we would have taken it. I don't think they looked at this team and said, you know what, if we have Stunt here, we're really going to contend. I don't think that was the thinking.
Right. He was an academy player.
So how do you find that support player? You know, and that is the real challenge. And so that's why, and this is another question. This came from @palmtree977. Do you actually believe they will make changes? And do you want any changes? And if yes, who do you want? That's the thing. It's like, that's the change I want. I want a new support. I don't think it's going to happen. I can't imagine a scenario where we have another support. I don't think Breezy is there. And what do we do? People point to Diamond. I don't know. Yeah. Not sold on that. I just don't think we have another option. And is this the time to strike anyway? You know what I mean? Right. Is this the time to strike? That's hard to say. Are you thinking
if we can be good enough to get top 3 and go to Worlds, is this really the split where you want to shake it up?
Like no. I mean, like, is this a time where you go all in? Like, for instance, payroll wise, we are doing a lot less than we did last year, right? Mm-hmm. We are paying out a lot less money this split. So given the present configuration of players, say we're only able to switch that support piece, does the rest of the squad warrant an all-in moment when it comes to spending? Like, say, and this is stupid and it wouldn't happen, but just for the sake of argument, say somehow we can get Vulcan for like the $1.5 million buyout or whatever. Do you do that for this team? I don't think you do that for this team. You have to have you definitely have to have 3 very good players, and then your other 2 players have to be solid, like rock solid, right? I don't think we have enough in aggregate to where we make a big play at the support position and it really puts us in firm contention. Next split, Cloud9 is going to be similar. I'm sure they won't do quite as well, right? But they'll be very difficult to beat. Team Liquid will almost certainly be back, right? And that leaves 1 spot for Worlds. You know what I mean? So how confident are we that if we switch 1 player out, that we get that? Because is that the only way it's worth spending the money? It might be, you know? And so this just may not be the time to make that move, especially when there's so few options available.
Yeah. It's tough because we've seen how good Cody can be. Like, when I think about this team relative to the LCS, Ssumday can be top 1, 2. We know he can. Meteos can be I'd say top 3. Ryoma, TBD. Cody can be top 1 or 2. And if you got an S tier support player, so on aggregate, then you have a top 3 team at every position. That is basically all you need to be
not mid lane.
Well, yeah.
And I think Meteos is kind of arguable. I'm not sure.
He had a weak. We can't. I said can be.
He can be top 3, 4. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think the way I think about specifically the support position right now is, if you can make a play there that feels similar to Ryoma, like you're investing for the future, I kind of think you do it. And if we see anything, this is what I think we might see. The trick is you want to try to do this without breaking someone, right?
Yes.
If you put somebody into the LCS too early, we've seen how this goes. It just doesn't work.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. And so that's the real challenge is now I don't think that the bar is so high with stunt that you run the risk of really, what's the right analogy? Throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? Like, I don't think that you're going to look back and say, like, oh my gosh, why did we move at support? Because we know it's so clearly defined what we can expect. So that's what I think you might do is who can you scout? And the part B to that is without breaking them. And that's a really tough one. That is not an easy thing to do. But we've heard all this stuff about developmental squad and, we're going to look for fresh talent. Like, who's the rookie? How long had Vulcan been in the league before he was the highest costing player of all time? It's no small task to find the next Vulcan. If it were that easy, everyone would do it every split. But I think that's our best shot right now, because the other thing we know is you don't have a great import option. Like, if you're trying to do the import game, you don't have a lot of good options there.
And it's always a shuffle anyway,
Yeah.
Based on our situation, we've got imports in our solo lanes. So if you want an import support, then who's filling that gap for mid? And if you say DeMonte, I'm signing off. There was a.
He's got a.
There's
Kiana.
two more questions I want to. There's two more questions I want to hit. One, at Bat Lars said, "What do you think will need to change to make Ssumday stay?" Something that I mentioned a couple pods ago, I think, is that his contract's up this year.
Yep.
So does he stay with 100 Thieves? I was honestly surprised that he stayed the last time this came up. And I talked about how I thought that after 2019, his stock fell a little bit.
Yeah.
Summer split is going to dictate if that happens again. I mean, I don't have... One thing that the players have said is that 100 Thieves has been a good place to work, right? Like, they've been a supportive org. Meteos and Cody were weird situations. Obviously, something was resolved in that scenario because they are back, right?
Right.
So the two counter cases possibly have obviously been resolved. So there's that. I don't want to undersell that piece of it, but Ssumday wants to win, man. And that it's like all but one or two teams would certainly welcome him into the fold if he became available. So if we have another split where his stock is damaged a little bit, that might,
like, let's say his tilt
him to stay
into summer.
Yeah, right. He doesn't play well in the summer, or he has another bad playoff showing. He had a bad playoff showing. There's no way around it. Like, he had a bad playoff showing.
He did. Like, he was up against the best.
Yeah.
Like you said, top lane. But that's kind of the environment where you need to prove that you're actually better, right? Easy to go into playoffs and just roll through, like, solo, not to throw any shade, but he was not on a roster, and he's still in the playoffs, so I guess maybe I shouldn't even talk about him. But not everybody's Broken Blade or Licorice, and he didn't deliver.
Yeah.
He's got some things to prove.
Right. But it's like think even like EG, like what if EG made
Kumo.
a play for Ssumday, right? They've got Kumo. Yep. Like, how is that not an upgrade? And they're the second place team,
Purely. Yeah.
I don't know. So I think that what happens next split is really going to be the determining factor in that. And I would like to say that Ssumday stays. I hope that that's true. I really like him. But yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out. Then the final question, unless you have something else to say on the Ssumday situation.
I would just say, assuming he returns to form, becomes Ssumday, we know he is. I think that we need to be a legitimate Worlds contender, because I think if not, it's going to feel very hard for him to feel like he is, being provided with the opportunities to achieve the level that he thinks he can. And I think that he knows he can, right?
Sure.
We got to make changes to get there.
Agreed. Okay, and then final question I want to hit, and then we'll wrap up. At Rex says 09838082 says, thanks, auto-generated names. What's next for Ryoma? Personally, I'd love to have him stay, but the common conception is that he isn't quite good enough yet. So here's what I'll say. A couple things. I'll lead off on this one, and then Jordan, you can supplement. First of all, I think he has started to change the narrative that he isn't good enough. The dive specifically called him out this week for, saying he's done enough to stay. He's done enough to stay and to have a starting spot. He's on an upswing. So he could develop into a permanent LCS player. Like that's on the table. So I think he surely is going to be the starting mid laner going into summer. I don't think, however, that his position is secure through the following year. I think that 100 Thieves is a team who will want to be in a position to win. And mid lane is just such an important role, and it's an import slot for us, that you basically need to have a top 3 player in that position to justify it in the long term. Okay. So to me, it feels like he's got a year to show that he can get there. And if he doesn't, then his position is in danger for this, and will be subjected to the same, what do we have available kind of plays. But I think unless he continues to take leaps up, which, make no mistake, he has taken leaps up this split. Definite progress. If you don't think he's made progress, you are not watching. There's no disputing it. So if he continues that pattern, he could theoretically do enough to keep his starting spot for the following year. So in the meantime, what does he do? Like, the question is, what's next for him? There was another take from Mont who says Ryoma and Stunt both need to expand their champ pools. If Stunt's around, that's definitely true, but certainly Ryoma does too. So yes, I think summer will be the split of trying him out on the different types of mid laners.
Yep.
And in addition to working on that, I just want to see his laning improved. So if I'm him, that's what I'm doing in the off season, is practicing champs other than control mages and laning your butt off.
Yeah. I think for me, it's so much about, like, if you don't like Ryoma, if you don't think he's the right option for this team, that is a valid point. That's a valid position to take. You can argue either side of it, and they're both valid. Here's what I think the most honest argument is for that point, which I don't personally adhere to myself, but here it is. He's an import, which means that best available talent means literally every mid laner in the world. You need to be convinced that he is better than every mid laner that you could possibly get in the world to stay beyond current term.
Knowing that the decisions you make affect people's willingness to come to your organization too. So if you lose for too long, how are you going to convince Larson to come over? So
right. So for me, I think that's the thing. And I think if you're saying, hey, look, like right now, for a lot of our guys, the question is he the best available in the NA region? And the answer to that is it's a lot harder to say, boy, I just don't know who else you would look at. Even with Stunt, we said that was exactly what we said. Who can't think of a really great mid laner from somewhere in the world? So that's kind of the life of an import, right? You have to constantly be earning your position against the full competitive set, which is the world. So not to say that we could get any mid laner in the world. That's a different thing. But you are looking at every talent when you're thinking about potential signees to bring to your organization. And that's what we'll have to see, right? We'll have another split here to see what he can turn into. His job is to narrow the list of people who you'd say, boy, that would be a clear improvement, and actually I'd really like to bring them here, and they're willing to. Because if that's the case, you make that signing. right? Because your development kind of experiment is done, and you've decided he's not improving at a rate that's worth it. Now, there's all kinds of other variables you have to throw into that, like cohesiveness of the team. Are you, what do the players, what's it like to play on this team? Does it feel like it's a tight-knit unit? If you're constantly pulling people out of that, then the answer is no. So it's not as straightforward as just like sign the best players. We've seen that. So that's where I think we'll need to look next, and we'll learn a lot, hopefully, in the next split, so we can answer that question more fully.
Yeah, and just a really quick piggyback onto this before we finally close it out. I've seen this question come up a couple times from Twitch user DREC. Says, do you think you make changes in the jungle before support? Stunt seems to have a bigger ceiling over Meteos, and that is something I disagree with. Not categorically make changes in support before jungle. That's not what I'm saying. But Stunt has a bigger ceiling than Meteos. I disagree with a lot. I think people forget how much Stunt has bounced around in the LCS. He's not new to this. He's not. He's had a lot of experience. And Meteos, as recently as last year, was basically like a top 2 jungler. And I think Meteos has certainly had his moments this split, many moments. And Jordan and I argued many times that we think that there's a good argument to say that he might have been next priority after Stunt. So Stunt number 1 priority, Meteos or Ryoma, depending, So he's certainly had his moments, but I think it's just so glaringly different. Like Stunt's on a different level, and he has not. First of all, Meteos has a pedigree. He's been around forever and has found ways to be on teams that contend. And Stunt has been around forever and has been in and out of starting spots and not looked great at an LCS level almost ever. So I disagree with that in this specific case.
I think important to remember too, Meteos spends a lot of time palling around with Stunt in the jungle, right? So I do think, to a degree, the style of game we play, the jungler is in some ways a reflection of your support, right? They're trying to do a lot of 2-person engages. And like we talked about, if the hook is flying and you're thinking, oh no, please, no, not that one. That changes the way you play the game too, right? So I think one person's performance impacts the people around them. That's the way this game works. And I think there are a lot of situations where the other people might look different if we have a different support player.
And plus, as Switchbox pointed out, Meteos is indeed super chill. And he injects personality to this group of dudes that I think is needed, So,
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, here's what we're gonna do. So we're done talking about this split, believe it or not.
Done.
The spring split is now behind us as 100 Thieves fans. We will have an off-season podcast where we talk specifically about, hey, here are some things that we're hearing are going on. Here's the Reddit discussion. Here's the Twitter discussion. Here's some people that may be available. Like, we'll think through that and provide some more cohesive off-season thoughts. But in the meantime, we will just sprinkle little special podcasts here and there for you guys. We've got some things in the works that you will see soon. Summoners Cup finals are also this week. Summoners Cup has been a ton of fun. I can't believe it's about to come to a close. So the numbers collection, led by 100 T's Jason Ton, will be taking on Ibrahim's Flex Q in the finals, a best of 5 that we're going to cast Thursday night, this Thursday. So be there for that and see who becomes Summonary. And in the meantime, again, we'll be around. Join our Discord if you're not already in there. I'll put the Discord link in the chat. You guys will be hearing from us during the off season, but man, that is a split. And going into leaving this podcast the way we came into it, I'm happy. I'm happy about the result of the split. I really would have liked to get that TSM win. We were so close to it, but man, good split. compared to expectations, successful.
Yeah.
I feel strong in my conviction that was a successful split. We staked a lot on Trust the Papa. And I think results of split 1 are very positive. And Jordan, we're going to make progress, aren't we?
I expect so. I think we've got upside.
Upside is there. So we'll see what happens with the potential moves that we've talked about. Right now, it's in Papa's hands. It's in the Father's hands, to sound Catholic about it. All right, so that'll do it for 100 Talk. Guys, nice split. Thanks for being here with us. Absolutely love doing this and thrilled to have the world's best community around what we do. We are
Correct.
small, but we are mighty and tight knit. So yeah, if you're not already like super involved with our Discord and everything, please do hop in. It's just an amazing group of people. And 100 Thieves or 100 Friends.
100 Friends. I like that. That's good. It's got a good sound.
All right, that'll do it. Guys, as always, we love you and we miss you already.